Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you about chapter 6. So it starts when Star and her mother go to the police station, and Star comments on how kind of normal it feels there. She says it feels more like Law and Order, almost like it's not real life, but then she comments on the way that the guns make it real. So there's this unspoken implication that the guns lead to a flashback for Star. And we see Carlos works there. He's a detective, and we see that he has pictures up of Star and Sakani and his own kids. And this is a reminder to us that he's her protector, that he thinks of her as his own, that he wants only the best for her. Because, at this stage in the book, we're still sort of trying to figure out allegiances. All right, so there's this continued nonverbal communication here. Star squeezes her mom's hand. They squeeze each other's hands back and forth because, again, there's so much that can't be said. And we've seen this, from the moment that Khalil was killed, in the fact that no one really knows quite what to say to Star. And when she goes to visit Miss Rosalie, again, there are no words. They just kind of talk to each other through holding hands. So there's this very important emphasis put on nonverbal communication. And when Star's talking to the cops, she reminds herself of the rules of being around cops, right? So keeping her hands visible, no sudden moves, only speaking when spoken to. And it shows her attitude towards the cops even when she isn't quote unquote in trouble. So she feels like she's always in danger, even though she's there as a witness. Even though she isn't under arrest, she's not under suspicion. So that's how deep-seated her distrust and her fear are. And of course, we see the way that she puts on the other version of herself for the cops, much like the version that she puts on at Williamson. She says, I can never, ever let anyone think I'm ghetto, right? So we see this part of her personality in a new heightened context. At school, it's about fitting in and it's about what people think of her. But suddenly in the police station, she feels like so much truly rides on the way that she presents herself. And during the interview with the cops, we see, the discrepancy between the things Star says and the things that she thinks or wants to say. So her thoughts are really defensive and aggressive, but out loud, she's really passive and polite. So we get to see the dichotomy of her personality in action. And her mother tells her to look up when she's speaking to the detectives. And Star tells us that her parents are always saying to look in people's eyes because the eyes say more than mouths do. So this really kind of brings home that idea of nonverbal communication, right? It continues the theme of that gap between what's said and what is conveyed without words. And we also see this nonverbal communication between the cops, right? Star says that they glance at each other and have a moment of silent conversation. So there's, kind of this relationship between what is said and what's really happening that's reflected in this moment. So the cops are saying the right things, right? They're saying Star's not in trouble. They just want to understand what happened, see the whole picture. But what their eyes are saying to each other is something very different, right? And we can assume that they're thinking, is she going to be a problem? How are we going to spin this, right? All of this is implicit. And the cops start probing her about Khalil being a drug dealer. And Star's mom points out that they haven't asked a single question about the cop, right? And so this moment with the cops, it foreshadows what the whole investigation is going to be like. Them having to prove that Khalil didn't deserve to be killed rather than the officer being punished for what he did. Okay, so that's it for chapter 6.